Okay, check me out. On my client, I can run the PortForwarder software. Then I have my Sliver on the left. I'm running the beacon on my SQL server. It goes through my client, and now we have the beacon on the left, which is fully functional and stable beacon. Now let me explain what the heck happens. Now to explain what happens, we need to draw a little bit of theory and diagram here. Again, you have timestamps down in the video, so if you don't want to get into the theory of the things, but the practical implementation and the source code, you can just navigate yourself. If you enjoy the content, press the like, and now let's move on. Now here, in order to showcase properly that, I'm gonna quickly draw my very sample environment so you can get the picture of what actually happens. Now here we have few things. We have a simulated Active Directory, which is Lsecqt local, my local Active Directory here. And then we have external to them systems, my Kali. So the Kali you saw on the screenshot on the first part here is actually the Kali which is outside of my internal network. So that's why the Kali has an IP address of 192.168.0 something, and all the machines inside the Lsecqt local have an internal IP which serves with 172.16 and something. So I have created internal designated network which is encapsulated, and all the machines as my Kali are treated as external systems because they are. Now here on this AD we have various systems. We're not gonna draw all of them to save some time, but one important thing we have to have is the DC. We have to have, of course, the firewall, which I like to draw it like that because using this format it sits as a gateway on my network itself. So this makes it easy to distinguish to see where is the gateway because it's here. So part of it is outside, part of it is inside. Then we have the SQL O1 system, which is here. And then we have my client O1, which is my workstation, which you've seen here on the right. Now, most of the time when we do internal pen test, quite often I see a restrictive network configuration when it comes to outbound traffic of servers. So let's imagine this is your initial access system which has external access. So this client here can go through the firewall, and from the firewall can communicate pretty much to anywhere, including the Kali box or including Google or anything else. So this is fine. So we can make this, for example, green, because to outline that this is completely fine. But in some cases, and in some environments, I tend to see that servers are restricted for outbound communication. And don't get me wrong, that's exactly how it's supposed to be, and I am happy with the clients when I see such configuration, because at the end, that's the proper way of doing that. So the servers, if you try to connect to some external address, like to the Google, let's say google.com here, and if you have some kind of a foot code to the server, it can be RDP access, PSExec, whatever, from the server directory is gonna fail, like that. So that is not possible. Make this red, there it is. So the idea here is very simple. When we have some kind of access, or when we compromise some kind of server, which cannot by design because of the firewall connect to us, that's not possible. We can use the internal system on the network we have as a redirector, so the server can route the traffic not directly through the firewall and then to us, but instead to the client, and then from the client to us back. So essentially we are using the redirector technique, but using a local machine as a redirector. Because if there's no external traffic at all, there's no point of spawning external redirectors. So we must use some of the systems inside as a redirector itself. And when that thing happens, then the connection is fine. Because when they are on the same network, of course the server can communicate to the client, that's in most of the cases possible. And since the server can communicate to the client and there's no NAC, and since the client can communicate through the firewall back to us, this makes the obvious decision to go for that, set up a redirector here, and then make the entire chain. Before moving on, I'm quickly pausing the video just to say massive thanks to all of my patrons. This content is free, and if you want to support my work, the only way of doing so is by becoming a Patreon. There you're gonna get access to internal videos with internal know-how, internal tools such as a C2 agent and a packer that's capable of preventing most of the AVs and EDRs, and also internal knowledge that is only for my patrons. Thank you so much, and moving on. Now, the way we do the entire trick is with a tool called PortForwarder that I created. Now, the tool itself is based on C, and it does one very simple job. What happens is you run it, you specify an incoming server, you specify where to redirect the traffic to, and on what port. So in such example right here, what happens is we open locally on our system port 8080, and as someone connects to our system on port 8080, then we move it to the targeted system onto the targeted port. Now, if you need more details about what happens in runtime, you can specify the -v flag, and the tool is also capable of forwarding SMB traffic. Now, when you specify port 445, what happens is that this port is already occupied because chances are you have already SMB service running. But if you run this tool with an administrator, and if you specify port 445, the tool is automatically going to stop the SMB service, automatically going to unbind or free out port 445, and then it's gonna continue with the forwarding part, so it's gonna use SMB to forward traffic to the targeted location. So it uses pretty much any port we need. In the engagement, I mostly find the need for HTTPS ports and SMB ports. Besides that, there's not really that much practical implementation, but still any port can be used for forwarding. And now let me showcase how this works in action. Now, to get things started, we need to set up a proper environment. And now we must make sure to know exactly which point can connect outbound and which one cannot. Now for this demo, as mentioned in the files itself, SQL01 is the system you can see pretty much on the right, cannot directly confront Kali through the firewall. So I configure it, it's not possible. But on the next hand side, we have the client 01, which is that system now. And client 01 can't do it because in most environments, in most engagements, I see workstation to have this ability to reach outbound systems because that's intended. Users must have external network access. Yes, it can be through a proxy, but it's possible. So this is my environment, and essentially what happens is we need to have the port forwarder inside the client. We need to have port forwarder here. So we can also do in brackets, port forwarder here. Yeah, because here we set up the redirector, and then it's important on how we configure our beacon, and that's the critical part. Because on the beacon side, you cannot just have your external IP, because this is gonna force the beacon to connect directly. On the beacon, you must have the IP of the redirector system and not on your Kali. Trust me on that. So here I can go my Sliver, I can clear up my screen, and I can clean up the past redirector I use for testing. So I can remove that, and I can also remove test.exe just for cleanup. Now on the Sliver, I don't know if you get the latest update, but I'm so happy with it. Because with Sliver now, by default, when you press backspace to delete, now it deletes a whole chunk of word, which is something I missed with Sliver. And it was hard to delete big chunks of data, and now it's that by default. And also, the beacon generation pane, I don't know if that's new, but I just see it now, is badass. So in the past, what you had to do is to type generate beacon -h and get all the options and compile a command. But now Sliver has a wizard mode. And what happens in this wizard mode is if you just run generate beacon without anything else like that, it's gonna give you a UI that's gonna guide you through beacon generation. So we can use that. Now here is first asked for a common platforms only, so I can maybe make this better for now, bigger. So I'm gonna type yes on that. Then I have to specify, of course, Windows, run that. And then architecture, I'm gonna go with AMD64. I can say the UI is quite intuitive. Then the output is gonna be executable, although we can go with shared libraries, service, shellcode, and so on. Executable for our testing purpose is fine. Run that. Then the implant name, now that's optional. If you don't specify it, Sliver is gonna automatically name it with something random, so we can just name it redirector like that. Then here it's important to specify the type of C2 transport layer that you have created your listener with. And now in my case, if I open a new Sliver pane, I can go with jobs, and I started HTTPS job. So the way you start HTTPS job is just type HTTPS like that, and it's gonna start a listener. But if you type MTLS, it's gonna start an MTLS listener. So MTLS and HTTPS are different things. So based on how you set it up, your listener here, that's what you need to have onto this pane. And now in my case, since my listener is HTTPS, I'm gonna go for that specific thing. Run it, and now this is the critical part. Here we have to use the IP of the client itself. Because as mentioned, if we use that, we're gonna force the beacon to connect here, even though here there is no C2 server at all. Since we force the beacon to connect here, and we establish the forwarder, this traffic is gonna be forwarded to here. And that's the critical part. Because if as the IP again you specify the Kali IP, the beacon is gonna directly try to connect to the firewall to the Kali, which is gonna fail because on the firewall restrictions. So that's why we need to specify a system, even though the system is not a C2 server, but acts as a redirector. So with that, in that case, I have to specify the IP of the client 01, which in my case is, can I make this bigger? Yep, I can. In that case, 172.16.32.206, and we can also specify HTTPS at the beginning. Now, if you specify your HTTPS listener on different port, you have to always outline the port here. But since in my case this is the default 443, then I don't need to do it because that's by default. Run it. Now the output folder, again, by default that's gonna be where you started Sliver that, so I can just run it. And now here on the beacon interval in seconds, I can specify 5 and jitter also 5. Keep in mind that if you specify less than 5 seconds, it's gonna error out. So don't go with 1 or 2 seconds. If you want that, maybe specify a direct session. There it is, the beacon is now there. So what I can do is first get my IP address, which is 0160. Then I can reverse to verify the payload is there, and I can run HTTP server 80. Now here I can simply do IWR HTTP 192.168.0.206. The file is redirector.exe. I'm gonna output that as r.exe, why not? And then I can use basic parsing to successfully download it. And I mistyped the IP, of course, it's 106, not 206, 160. I'm having a muscle memory of my previous VM, run that. Okay, now the beacon is downloaded, and before running it, we need to set up the redirector, because if that's not set up, if you run it, you're not gonna receive anything. So I'm gonna go to Sliver. Now here, as mentioned, I already have the PortForwarder downloaded, and I can run PortForwarder. In that case, I'm gonna open on me port 443 because that's what port we used during the configuration. Then here I can specify 192.168.0.160, and then the port is gonna be again 443 because that's the destination port, aka the port which Sliver listens on. So I can run that, and then if I run the file r.exe, let's see what happens. I'm running that. We automatically get the beacon, which is perfect. But if we go here, you can see the traffic and what happens. Now, from it, we can then attach the beacon, use that one, spawn a shell maybe, why not, or interactive. There it is. And there it is, sessions, use the session, do ls, and there it is, we are on the beacon. Now, what that means is that even though we have a session, the redirector still works and it forwards traffic properly. So we can still perform normal activities, so those sessions are not genuinely supported. Now, it's also important as a summary and a wrap up to mention that this is gonna run unless the system here is operating. So if something happens, if the machine sleeps, someone reboots it, or anything else happens, then anything we do now is gone, and the beacon is dead until we resume the port forwarder itself. So in that case, I can try to do something, it's gonna time out. If I do background, if I use even the beacon, not the session, but the beacon, it still says that we have the implant timeout. So what happens is the beacon is gonna run and it's gonna operate until this service is running. So be aware when you do it in real engagement to see the sleep settings and to not let the machine sleep, because if the machine sleep and that's the redirector inside, then it's gonna fail. In most systems, in most environments, the workstations by default sleep with some time, so make sure to have something to keep them active, for example the CoffeeNet module, or to manually poking them at some time. With that, I want to say thank you so much again, appreciate you staying in the video, and I really hope that was useful. If that was the case, smash the subscribe button because this helps my channel so much. And again, for deeper appreciation, and if you want to learn more and get deeper into the malware and red teaming field, become a Patreon and let's have fun.